sports lineup cards, they follow the same rules as all of our Sports Buzz animated graphics. We're just using different kinds of animation. So everything in here is built out in Photoshop. Everything has been brought in as a JPEG or a PNG and arranged how we need it. When you play this out, I will play it in the canvas instead of sending it out to the CG. So if you want to play it in the canvas, by the way, it's Alt Play. Alt Play will play it in the canvas. Control Play will send it out to CG. So for right now, we'll just Alt Play it. Here's what it looks like when it fully animates. And then it'll fade off. So each one of these players is their own JPEG, their own player card JPEG that's been brought into this lower third template. So if we needed to replace any of these players, we would start by importing a new graphic. So back up to the top and hit import graphic. You'll go out again to your iDrive where everything is. We are now in a new profile. It's called Shoe Football. So go into the Shoe Football folder, into my images folder, and I have everybody's lineup card saved in here. So we're looking at the offensive line, so let's pick a line. Oh my god. We're looking at the offensive line here, all the player cards we have available. So let's get a new wide receiver in here. Andrew will be in here twice because he's special. So, as you can see, when you import these player cards, they do not automatically fall into our template. You need to put them in the template, mask them, and then put the animation on them. So, let's say we want to put Andrew in here twice because he's that good of a player. So, we're going to put him over Andrew, right? Position it so, and you'll see everybody has these red boxes along the bottom for their names. It serves two purposes. It holds their name, their position, and their number. It also helps so that when you bring in new player cards, you can align them easily. Set up for your convenience. So, here's Andrew's card. Let's line him up wherever we'd like him to be lined up. And again, just like Photoshop. So right now he's on top of our template. We want to get him under the template. So over in the scene graph, grab his card, which is all the way up here on the top. Drag it under our border element. Let's get rid of Andrew. So you select this card and select his card, hit the delete object button. So right now he's under our border, which is right here in your scene graph. Everything is labeled. So here's the border we're looking at. As long as it's under this border, you're good to go. So even though he's now in this graphic, if I scrubbed through this to see the animation, he's not there. He's not going to comply with the animation we have set up. So we're going to need to fix that. So he is the first card in this lineup, which means he's going to be the first one to animate on. So if you come down into your timeline, you'll see all of our layers in here, and you'll see all the keyframes that we already have set up. So we're going to need to move Andrew's card in the timeline all the way forward. So you can see what order everything animates on. If we scrub all the way to 0, the first things to animate on are all of our masks plus our borders and the logo box that says offensive line. So as we scrub through, all of that will come on first. And so where I have him is clearly too early. So we're going to need to adjust that. And then everyone else has their prescribed time to come in. So Andrew is going to want to come in around here, right? So we are 16 frames in. So you can move any element in your timeline by simply clicking and dragging it. So I want him to start at about 16 frames in. So we're going to drag him here. Yep. And he already has, this card already has a keyframe assigned to it because it automatically gets a keyframe when you place it on your canvas to tell it to come in. the next thing we're going to want to do is add the animation on it. So all of these cards, the way they're animating on is that they're rotating. So we're going to scrub back to the front. Find the frame where he first comes in. With this card selected, you're going to come up to your properties panel. And the animations we have on here are position animations. So we're going to go to the XYZ tab. And all we're doing is rotating him. The only animations we have in here for this message are position animations. So you come up to the XYZ tab, and all of these cards are rotating on the Y axis. So what we're gonna do is you come up here, your first box at the top is rotation. You can either type a number into this box. If you're gonna type numbers, be sure to use this row of numbers. There are arrows that you can increase and decrease its position, or if you click on the number and start dragging, you'll see it rotate. So what we want to do for this first card, let's reset back to 0. For this first card, we want the initial position to be so that we can't see it. So it's got to rotate 180 degrees this way. So we're just going to drag the Y-axis until we cannot see him anymore. Right here. And that is how he's going to live at his first keyframe. So if you see me scrub through the rest of the animation, you'll see his card show up, and he's already rotated at whatever he needs to be rotated at. So we need to bring him back in, like everybody else's card. So we need to rotate this card back on. So we're going to go back to where his card comes on, which is right here at frame 13. We're going to fast forward to frame 25. So we'll say frame 25 is where we want his card to be fully rotated and we can see his face. So we'll fast forward to frame 25, come back up to our Y value in the rotation area of the XYZ tab. Make sure you have the right layer selected. So we're working with the Andrew O'Neill card, right? So we have it selected in the scene graph, you have it selected in your timeline. Come back up to your XYZ tab, the Y rotation, and exact same thing. Click and hold down on the number, and now start dragging it back the other way. And this is your end position. You don't need to set anything in between. You set the start point and the end point, and Lyric takes care of everything in between. So if we go all the way back to 0, actually, so we know we have to go back to 0, so you can either drag it or type it. Once you do that, it will add a new keyframe. You'll see that it's added a new keyframe in here. So you're ready to go. So if we scrub all the way back to the beginning, we have Andrew's new card in here. It's got 2 new keyframes that we just added. And if I scrub through the animation, you'll see him rotate on like everyone else. The last thing you'll notice about this card, if you come halfway through the animation, you'll see that the card is coming outside of our border, because all the cards in our border are masked in them, just like all the OTSs we have for Sports Buzz. So what you're going to do is we're going to find Andrew's card in here, right click it. We're going to make sure we are masking it to the right layer. So this is the mask we're going to be masking all of our cards to, right here. And this is on layer 1. So you come back to Andrew's card, right click it, click mask to layer 1, right click it again, do mask to inside. And mask to inside says that you want everything inside of your mask to show up, otherwise everything on the outside will show up. So we've now done that. You can see that the card is no longer spilling over our border. That first card is animating on exactly like everybody else's. The only thing we have to do now at the end is to fade it off. So you'll see for these player cards, even though everybody animates on at different times, every single element on your canvas is going to fade off at the exact same time. Otherwise it's going to look weird. So when you want to fade things off, you're actually going to need to make 2 separate keyframes. You need to make one that tells all of your elements to start at 100% and one that tells it to end at 0%. So if you look in your timeline, every layer has a keyframe running right down here and right down here. This is our 100 and this is our 0. So let's scrub forward to that keyframe. It's at 2 seconds into the animation. In order to travel from keyframe to keyframe, you can come up here into your transport and click these up and down arrows to go one at a time. There is a keyboard shortcut for it. However, the keyboard gets kind of finicky. I would highly suggest using this. So 2 seconds in is where everybody else has been designated at 100%. So we're going to select Andrew's card in the timeline or in the scene graph. It'll select it in both places. It doesn't matter which one you click. We're at 2 seconds in. You're going to come over to your properties tabs again. Go to surface. These are exactly like your Sports Buzz OTSs. Right now the alpha is set to 100. So that's what we want to do. We want to make it at 100. So in order to set a keyframe, all you have to do is click in this box and hit enter. And we have added, you'll see, scrub out of the way. We've added a keyframe in here, so he's now set at 100 like everybody else. And 15 frames later is where every element fades out to 0. So we're going to scrub forward to 2 seconds and 15 frames, and then we're going to come back up to the alpha, change it to 0. Remember, if you're typing numbers, use this row of numbers. Type it in, hit enter. We've now made a new keyframe, and you can see that at 2:15, he's gone, just like everybody else's card. If we scrub back through it, we should have done it right. Everything animates on, and everything will fade off. So once you set up your new lineup card for tonight's game, you want to make sure you record it to a new number. So we're going to record this to number 200 for all intents and purposes. So 200 on the keypad, hit record. I get the green status bar that says I've been successful. And I'm going to hit Control Play to send it out to CG. So it animates on properly. All of these player cards are set up, or all these lineup cards are set up so that they will animate on when you play them out and animate off when you hit any key on the keyboard. The way the lineup cards are set up in the Chryon is that when you control play them out, they will animate and send out to CG. They will then pause until you tell Lyric to take it off. So that way you can leave it up as long as you need to while anybody's talking. The way you know it's been paused is across the bottom of the screen, you're going to get this red bar. It'll say the message number you're on, and it'll say paused for key press. While you see this red bar, do not touch anything on the keyboard until you're ready to clear the CG. So from here, I can't go and edit another message number. Normally you would be able to do it. Right now I can't because it's waiting for key press. When it says pause for key press, you can honestly hit any key on the keyboard to animate this off, except for escape. If you hit the escape key, it will cancel any kind of animation off, and this will stay here indefinitely until I clear it some other way, but it will not have that fade off animation that I already gave this. So if I wanted to fade off honest to God, any key on the keyboard, I highly suggest using the spacebar. It's easy to remember, and it's a pretty universal key that you can't get it confused with anything else, right? So when it's time to animate this off, you'll hear your director call to animate it off. You hit the spacebar, and it will fade out. Just to show you, like I said, any key except escape. If I hit escape, this is still up here, it hasn't moved, and I've lost my pause for key press. So if I hit the spacebar or anything else, nothing's gonna happen. The only way for me to get this off is if the TD takes it off, or if I clear it from back here. And to clear it from back here is Alt Erase. An alt erase only clears the CG. It has not deleted the message. My message is still here. It's still active. Okay. But how did we get the pause in there? I'm glad you asked. So pauses are pauses are its own animation. And you can actually see it down here in the timeline. It'll come in as an event. A pause is considered an event. And it gets its own layer in your timeline. It'll get its own layer in the scene graph. So I'm actually going to delete this one out of here so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to update this real quick. And you'll see if I go and play this out, now that I've completely gotten rid of the pause I had in here, if I play this out, it will not stop. The animation will just go. And obviously we do not want that. So in order to set up a pause, what you're going to want to do is come down in your timeline and scrub forward to whatever time you'd like it to pause. So I'd like this one to pause at 2 seconds. It takes about 1.5 seconds for this entire animation to happen, and then I'd like to add another 0.5 seconds just to be safe. So I'm going to scrub forward to 2 seconds. You can see it down here in my timeline. You can see it right here in my transport. I'm at 2 seconds in. You're going to come over to your properties window, to your events tab. And right here, this one, you got 2 boxes on top, loops and pauses. This one right here on the right, it says pauses. All you need to do is click this box right here. This is enabled. And when you click this box, you get an events layer in the scene graph. You get an events layer in your timeline. And just to confirm, when you come back up here to pauses, it will give you the pause information. Pause for keystroke after 2 seconds. You can come in and modify it. You can change your keyframe, determine whether or not it's going to be an ease in or an ease out. You can either pause for a keystroke, or you can set a prescribed amount of time that it will pause for. This one we're leaving as a keystroke, so I don't need to modify anything. Now that I've done that, I need to make sure I update this lineup card. So I'm going to save this, so either file save or Control S. I get the green status bar along the bottom saying that I've updated number 200. I've saved it. So now if I go to play it out, if we've done it correctly, after 2 seconds, it will pause. And when I'm ready to clear it, you hit any key on the keyboard. I highly suggest the space bar, so I'm going to hit the space bar, and it will fade out.